right, here we are another week with the weekly Startup Vagabond news. We did not do last week, was a little bit busy, so this week we're making up for it with 2 different weeks of news. So this should be basically the first half of July, maybe last few days of June. So let's get into it. As usual, we're going to start in Asia, move our way to Latin America, and wrap up in Europe. We'll start with startup news, then move over to VC news, and then in each section, if there's any, government news or, big changes or anything we need to know about, I usually put that at the end of each region's section. So starting off in Asia, starting in Japan, with startup news. Sakana AI raises $120 million for smaller, smarter models. Tokyo-based Sakana AI raised $120 million from a group of Japanese industrial companies. Instead of building an increasingly enormous models, Sakana combines specialized AI systems to create more efficient tools for Japanese manufacturing and robotics. Japan had a strong 2 weeks for DeepX software. Elevation Space raised $40 million for satellite reentry technology. Enecoat, E-N-E-C-O-A-T, raised $51 million for flexible perovskite solar cells. I'll have to look into that. And Helical Fusion raised 2.7 billion yen as Japan's fusion ecosystem keeps developing. The 10 million robot strategy. Japan unveiled a national robotics strategy that aims to deploy about 10 million robots across 18 industries by 2040. The logic is simple. Japan does not have enough workers, so physical AI is becoming an economic necessity. We talked about this in the past, but Japan, amongst other countries like South Korea and Taiwan and many other developed nations, are rapidly declining. I believe I saw yesterday was, I'm going to mess up the numbers, so I'll have to put it in another video. But look it up later about the declining birth rate of Japan. It's honestly scary. And then you wonder what happens to the economy whenever your population is halving every 50 years, Moving on to South Korea. DeepX takes AI chips to the edge. South Korean semiconductor startup DeepX raised $110 million to mass produce low-powered AI processors. These chips are designed to run AI inside robots, appliances, cameras, and industrial equipment without constantly connecting to the cloud. Lunet buys its way into European healthcare. South Korean medical AI company Lunet, L-U-N-I-T, agreed to acquire European cancer screening platform for $180 million in cash. This is a great example of an Asian AI company using M&A to get clinical data, regulatory access, and distribution in Europe. Moving on to Singapore, Video Rebirth wants to build AI world models. Singapore-based Video Rebirth reportedly raised $80 million to develop advanced AI video and world model technology. Founded by Tencent's former generative AI leader, the company wants to compete beyond basic text-to-video tools. Pfizer makes a rare Southeast Asian biotech bet. Pfizer Ventures joined the cap table of Singapore-based drug discovery startup engine Biosciences. That matters because global pharma capital can bring more than money. It can bring scientific validation, partnerships, and commercialization pathways. Tencent is reportedly in talks to become the largest shareholder in Manus AI, a Singapore-headquartered AI agent startup. The bigger story is that AI deal-making in Asia is becoming more geopolitical, with national security concerns shaping who is allowed to buy strategic startups. Moving on to Vietnam, Datbike, D-A-T-B-I-K-E, charges up electric delivery. Vietnamese electric motorcycle company Datbike raised $20 million to expand commercial fleets and charging infrastructure. The startup is betting that delivery drivers need electric bikes designed specifically for Southeast Asian roads, weather, and daily mileage. Logivan, LOGIVAN automates cross-border freight. Vietnamese logistics startup LogComex raised $42 million to expand its trucking marketplace across Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos. The platform uses AI to match cargo with available fleets and reduce empty return trips. Moving to Taiwan, Foxconn and Gogoro team up on battery swapping. Foxconn and Gogoro formed a $150 million joint venture to expand automated battery swapping networks across Southeast Asia. The partnership combines Gogoro's software and battery system with Foxconn's ability to manufacture at enormous scale. Moving to Thailand, HD uses AI to fill empty hospital capacity. Thai healthcare marketplace HD raised $12 million USD to expand across Southeast Asia. Its platform uses conversational AI to connect patients with available surgeries, treatments, and underused capacity inside private hospitals. AI infrastructure gets a $1.99 billion push. Thailand approved a $1.99 billion package across advanced electronics and AI infrastructure projects. One of the key pieces is a Japanese-backed GPU server project in Bangkok, which shows how Thailand wants to become more than just a manufacturing base. 1.99 is incredibly specific, so I wonder if that's just a conversion thing from the Thai baht to USD, or if maybe there's a specific law that stops things at $2 billion. Who knows? Moving on to VC news in Asia. Back in Singapore, Southeast Asian funding suddenly surges. Southeast Asian startups reportedly raised $3.85 billion across 18 rounds in June, more than 16 times the previous month's total. A few large transactions drove much of that increase, but the numbers still suggest that regional investors are becoming more active again. AI data centers become an investment product. Singapore-based BD Data Centers is reportedly considering an IPO to fund expansion across Asia. The AI boom is turning data centers into one of the region's hottest infrastructure bets. One established VC could produce several new funds. Senior leaders from BNext, BEENEXT, are reportedly considering launching independent investment funds. That is a small but useful signal that Southeast Asia's venture market is maturing and becoming more specialized. Moving to Japan, global private equity moves into Tokyo. Advent International made its first direct Japanese investment, while KPS Capital Partners launched a permanent Asia platform in Tokyo. International investors are increasingly targeting Japanese established healthcare, manufacturing, and industrial companies for modernization and expansion. In Taiwan and South Korea, cross-border startup capital gets formal. Taiwan and South Korea's Venture Capital Association signed a pact to expand cross-border funding and co-investment. That matters because both ecosystems are strong in semiconductors, hardware, and deep tech, but they still need more regional capital pathways. In other ecosystem news, still in South Korea, AI chips become a national project. South Korea announced an enormous semiconductor and AI infrastructure strategy led by companies including Samsung and SK Hynix. This is industrial policy on a massive scale, creating opportunities across chips, robotics, and packaging, data centers, and energy. Founder-friendly investment contracts. South Korea revised its standard venture investment contracts to reduce some of the personal financial risk placed on founders. The goal is to stop aggressive financing conditions from discouraging entrepreneurs from building high-risk technology companies. That's a really important one that I don't want to skip over quickly, specifically because from what I've heard on some investors in Japan and other East Asian countries, whereas we think of VC investment here in the US as very high risk, very, you get a 400x return or you get nothing. There's really no in between. That's what we typically think of here, whereas a lot of the deals structured in East Asia are more debt instruments, where in the event that your company fails, you still owe this as debt. In the event that you succeed, you still owe us a huge return. So it's very hard for a lot of East Asian companies to take big bets when they know that if they fail, there's going to be huge consequences, especially if you're raising tens of millions of dollars. So a topic for another day. A little bit about Quantum. Quantum moves into the infrastructure stack. Classic, CLASSIQ, and QAI, QAI, or maybe it's just QAI, announced plans to launch South Korea's first locally operated quantum as a service platform. Korea's innovation story is moving beyond chips into quantum, AI infrastructure, and financial sector AI safety. The next AI bottleneck may be memory. Taiwanese memory chip producer Nanya, Nanya Technology plans a major capital expansion as AI-driven demand increases. The AI hardware story is not just GPUs anymore. Memory, packaging, cooling, materials, and power are all becoming bottlenecks. IVS pitches the next phase of Japan's startup strategy. IVS 2026 brought thousands of founders, investors, and corporate leaders to Kyoto. The bigger story is Japan's continued effort to transform its robotics, manufacturing, and engineering expertise into globally scalable startups. If nothing else, I'm keeping my eye very closely on the robotics side of Japan, and I've actually got a trip coming up to Nagoya where I'm excited to meet some of my hardware-based and focused founders. So, good stuff. The region's capital hub gets even more important. Reuters, NEXT, Asia brought investors, policymakers, tech executives, and corporate leaders to Singapore to discuss AI, digital assets, private capital, and enterprise transformation. It reinforced Singapore's role as Asia's meeting point for technology, regulation, and money. Moving to Latin America, starting in Brazil. Stablecoins move into corporate banking. Brazilian Fintech Trace Finance raised $32 million to expand international banking and treasury tools for Latin American companies. The company uses stablecoin settlements behind the scenes to make cross-border transfers faster and less dependent on traditional banking networks. Importers get a fintech of their own. Brazil's Vixtra, Vixtra, raised a $9.6 million USD to prove working capital and automated credit underwriting for Latin American importers. It is a good example of fintech becoming more specialized around specific industries and trade problems. LogComex tracks the global supply chain. LogComex, LogComex. Brazilian supply chain intelligence company LogComex raised $28 million USD to expand across Latin America. Its software helps companies track cargo, predict shipping disruptions, and understand what is moving through ports in real time. I really hope I said that name right. It's spelled so simple. I don't know if I messed that up. LogComex. Solinftec raises, again, these founders got to stop naming these things so complicated. Solinftec raises $115 million USD for farm robots. Brazilian ag tech company Solinftec raised $115 million to scale its autonomous farm robot Solix. The robot moves fields to scan crops and treat weeds more precisely, which is exactly the kind of physical automation that can matter in agriculture. Okay, pretty cool stuff. I hope to see that in the field one day. Maybe I'll visit Brazil and go and see them. Next, QI Tech buys deeper into auto finance. Brazilian financial infrastructure unicorn QI Tech acquired Auto Banking, a vehicle financing platform, which is part of a broader fintech consolidation trend where larger infrastructure players buy niche lending tools to own more vertical markets. Heading to Mexico, SeguroYa modernizes commercial auto insurance. Mexican insurance technology startup SeguroYa, SeguroYa, raised a $45 million USD to improve coverage for commercial vehicles and fleets. The platform uses computer vision and telematics data to price policies and process claims more quickly. Nubank, Nubank, becomes a full bank. New Mexico, Numexico, not like the state, received approval to become a licensed bank in Mexico. That gives Nubank room to expand into more financial products and put even more pressure on Mexico's incumbent banks. Aviva and Nexu target credit access. Mexican fintech Aviva, Aviva, raised $18 million USD for AI-powered credit access through physical and digital channels, while Nexu secured a $143 million credit line from HSBC for vehicle financing. The common theme is financial inclusion for people and small businesses that traditional credit systems often miss. Colombia, Habi, Habi, raises a credit instead of equity. Colombian property technology company Habi, who knows, secured an $80 million credit facility to finance more real estate transactions. Using debt allows the company to keep buying and selling homes without giving up another large piece of its ownership. Interesting stuff. Addi, ADDI, raises $86 million for Adian consumer credits. Colombian buy now, pay later and digital commerce platform Addi raised an $86 million USD Series D. The company is expanding consumer credits and merchant integrations across Colombia and the broader Andean region. Over in Argentina, AgroToken turns grain into collateral. Argentina's AgroToken, AGROTOKEN, raises $22 million USD to expand its tokenized agricultural finance platform. Farmers can convert physical grain into digital assets and then use some assets as collateral for equipment, supplies, and other purchases. Interesting. Very interesting to see how that plays out whenever you start moving away from a fiat currency system back into more of a, what's the right term? This is going to bother me until I can think of the right term. Not serfdom. What was it called when there's like kings and queens in England and bartering system? I don't know. What's the mix between a bartering system and digital crypto assets? Whatever that is. This is going to be very interesting to see how this affects the economy that is already shaky on its best days in Argentina. Moving on to some VC news, Latin American startups reportedly raised just over $1 billion during the first quarter of 2026, with most of the recovery concentrated in larger, proven companies. At the same time, 500 Global launched a new initiative offering smaller checks to early-stage Latin American founders, showing that seed investors are still searching for the next generation. Moving to Mexico, funding is up, but concentrated. Mexico's startup funding appears to be significantly compared with last year. To be up significantly compared with last year's, but across fewer disclosed rounds. That means the headline number looks good, but investors are still being selective about who actually gets funded. Chile, a startup-backed lithium project, gets $225 million. See right there, it's important. $225 million USD. Italy's ENI agreed to invest $225 million into Energy X's lithium project in Chile. This combines startup technology, European strategic capital, and Latin American natural resources in one very clear climate tech supply chain story. And for our last story in Latin America, Brazil. Export credit becomes innovation infrastructure. Brazil approved a plan for up to 15 billion. I'm forgetting what they use in Brazil. Let's look it up. Reals, Brazilian reals. The more you know. I knew that, but I kept wanting to say rubles, and that's Russian. I don't think we've had any Russian news on here. We should see what's happening over there. Brazil approved a plan for up to 15 billion real in structured credit lines to support exporters. It is not a normal startup funding round, but it matters for hardware, commodities, and industrial technology companies that need financing stability to scale. And rounding us out, Europe, starting in Germany with some startup news. Germany drone company Quantum Systems secured one of Europe's largest recent defense tech financings, reportedly pushing its valuation to around 3 billion euros. The company builds autonomous aircraft used for surveillance, mapping, and battlefield intelligence. Ooh, I got a lot of Germany news this week. Black Forest Labs raises 257 million euros for generative AI. Black Forest Labs raises 257 million euros to develop open image and video generation models. The company is betting that more efficient European models can compete with relying entirely on the US cloud platforms. Proxima Fusion lands Europe's biggest fusion bets. Munich-based Proxima Fusion raised £411 million, giving it a reported valuation of about £2.4 billion. Very nice. The company has not produced commercial power yet, but investors are betting that fusion could become part of Europe's long-term energy and industrial strategy. Quantum is one of those industries that I've been hearing a lot more about in just the last few months. So excited to see when that next big breakthrough is. I heard, the other day we just got our first more power out than power put in, but we're still a ways away from it being consistent. But it's also really funny that no matter how advanced the power production becomes, at the end it usually just becomes like how to pump water faster, so that you can spin a turbine to get more energy, whether it's fusion or fission, or you're spinning a dynamo, I should say. It just makes me laugh that we're building miniature suns inside these laboratories to pump water. Please don't take that for skepticism. Quantum Diamonds brings quantum sensing to chip manufacturing. Munich-based Quantum Diamonds raised 15 million euros to commercialize quantum sensors built with synthetic diamonds. The technology can inspect semiconductor layers without damaging them. This makes it relevant to the global chip manufacturing boom. Pretty cool stuff. Over in France, Quobly, Quobly, raises 115 million pounds for silicon quantum computing. French quantum startup Quobly raised 115 million pounds to build quantum processors using existing semiconductor manufacturing systems. If that approach works, quantum hardware could become easier and cheaper to manufacture at scale. NVIDIA backs Gradium's voice AI round. Paris-based voice AI startup Gradium expanded its seed financing to more than $100 million, with NVIDIA joining as an investor. Seed financing? Jeez. The company spun out of French AI lab Kyutai, Kyutai, making it a strong example of Europe trying to build foundation model companies that can compete globally. Pascal tests the public market path for quantum. French quantum startup Pascal, SPAC-related filings points to more than $500 million USD in new financing. This will test whether European deep tech companies can use public markets to fund years of expensive hardware development. Over in the UK, Astral Systems brings medical isotopes into hospitals. British startup Astral Systems raised 26 million euros for compact systems to produce medical isotopes directly inside hospitals. That could reduce dependence on fragile international supply chains for materials used in cancer imaging and treatment. Ooh, a lot of news in the UK this week. GeoSurge builds SEO for AI era. London-based GeoSurge raised roughly £9.4 million pounds to help brands understand how they appear inside AI-generated answers. As consumers move from traditional search results towards ChatGPT-styled responses, companies need a new version of search engine optimization. Kraken becomes Europe's newest defense unicorn. British maritime defense startup Kraken Technology Group raised $175 million and reportedly reached unicorn status. The company builds autonomous maritime systems, showing that Europe's defense tech boom is moving from drones into ships and coastal security. InScale, InScale, raises debt for AI infrastructure race. London-based GPU cloud and AI infrastructure company, InScale, secured a $900 million debt facility from major Wall Street banks. That is a sign that AI data centers are moving beyond venture capital and into serious infrastructure finance. Wave, WAYVE, uses a private market instead of an IPO. Autonomous driving company Wave completed a $460 million USD secondary transaction on the UK's high seas private stock market. The deal gives early investors and employees liquidity without forcing the company into a traditional public IPO. Hive turns industrial machines into robots. London-based Hive, HIVE, raised $15 million USD to make industrial equipment autonomous or remotely operated. Instead of building brand new robots, the company adds intelligence to machines that construction, warehouse, and quarry operators already own. Moving over to Spain, OpenChip gets 115 million euros for European silicon. Barcelona-based chip design company OpenChip secured 115 million euros for Spain's sovereign tech fund. The goal is to strengthen Europe's independent chip design capabilities and reduce dependence on foreign semiconductor architects. 8 layers, the number 8, LAYERS, raises for cybersecurity. Spanish cybersecurity startup 8 Layers extended its pre-seed financing to 2.5 million euros. It is a smaller story, but cybersecurity remains one of Europe's most durable startup categories as cloud AI and compliance risk increase. Over in Italy, Bending Spoons delivers a major European exit. Italian software company Bending Spoons reportedly reached a market capitalization of more than $25 billion USD following its public debut. The company's buy and improve strategy shows that the European technology business can create major exits without following the traditional venture-backed SaaS playbook. We'll pause there. All right, had to take a short break for a few work meetings, but now we're back. So let's finish this up. Off to Poland. Tech2Pay automates cross-border payroll. Warsaw-based Tech2Pay raised $15 million USD for payroll and compliance infrastructure across Central and Eastern Europe. Its APIs help logistic companies and gig platforms pay workers across multiple currencies and tax systems. Redos, REDOS, security targets AI deepfakes. Polish cybersecurity startup Redos Security raised 18 million euros to fight generative AI audio and video deepfakes. As AI-generated fraud becomes more convincing, enterprise verification tools are becoming more important. Let's see if we can get somebody on the show for that. Public markets test their appetite for deep tech. Quantum computing company IQM reportedly entered the public markets at a valuation of around $1.9 billion USD. The listing will test whether public investors have enough patience to fund expensive technologies that may still be years away from widespread commercial use. And overall VC news in Europe and the UK, Seedcamp raises 279 million euros for Europe's next winners. Seedcamp closed at 279 million euros across an early stage fund and a separate vehicle for investing more heavily in its strongest companies. That structure lets the firm write the first check and continue supporting startups that successfully break out. Defense investors launch a 500 million euro scale-up fund. Early Bird and AVP launched a 500 million euro fund focused on European defense and dual-use technology. The vehicle is designed to help hardware startups survive the expensive gap between building a prototype and winning large government contracts. Europe's capital shifts towards robotics and hard tech. Germany reportedly led European venture funding for the month with about 2.4 billion euros in investment. The biggest takeaway is that European capital is moving towards robotics, defense, space, cybersecurity, and hard engineering. Eurazeo targets 500 million euros for future industries. French investor Eurazeo, EURAZEO, is targeting a 500 million euro fund for future industries, climate transition, and industrial decarbonization. This fits the broader European shift from pure software towards physical infrastructure and hard tech climate solutions. In other news, the M&A wave keeps growing. European merger and acquisition values reportedly increased 77% year over year during the first half of 2026. With startup funding still selective, more European software and industrial companies may treat strategic acquisition as the most realistic path to scale or exit. In the UK, grants keep frontier research alive. The UK's Apex Awards are providing researchers with up to £200,000 for interdisciplinary projects in areas including biomaterials, space manufacturing, and advanced infrastructure, for technologies that are too early or too risky for venture capital. Non-dilutive public funding remains essential. First half tech funding gets concentrated. UK startups reportedly raised about $17 billion USD in the first half of 2026, with a small number of late-stage mega rounds taking most of the capital. The market is active, but it's not equally active for everyone. Liquidity experiments are getting more important. Wave, WAYVE, the one we talked about earlier, Wave's private market secondary deal and IQM's public market move both point to the same problem. European tech needs more ways to create liquidity. If founders, employees, and investors cannot get returns, the whole ecosystem gets stuck. Well, that's it for this week's news. The bigger pattern is clear. Governments and investors are no longer just funding chatbots. They're funding robots, chips, autonomous systems, energy, data centers, and the infrastructure underneath the next technology cycle. There's got to be some analogy better than, in the, I believe it was 1849, the big gold rush in California. There's always the analogy of, don't be the one trying to look for gold, be the one that sells the shovels to the gold miners. Whatever the equivalent is for this, please leave it in the chat below, in the comments below. It really does feel as though the money is wising up and realizing that you can only push the valuation of ChatGPT and Anthropic so far before they're just correcting themselves at some point. Now it's time to invest in things that AI actually improves, like robotics and chip design and everything else. So excited to see where that leads us over the next 12 months. Who knows, hopefully a more diverse investing landscape rather than all being concentrated in just a few AI startups or companies now. That's all I got for this week. another great week of reading the news and seeing what's happening around the world. A lot of investments, a lot of fintech in Latin America like usual, and a lot of robotics in East Asia. So until next week, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you again. Adios.